time for us to come together. Time for us to unite.
The historic victory of Manitoba's premier-elect.
How do you do? I'm Wab Kinew.
The political challenges he faces and how he lured voters. Also on this Wednesday night, the final farewell to a fallen RCMP officer. The regimental funeral for Constable Rick O'Brien. A former crypto king in court, the fraud case against a Bitcoin bubble boy, and the lessons for investors. Plus, the real problem with deepfake videos.
I am not Morgan Freeman.
How quickly AI technology is advancing and the legal loopholes.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight in Manitoba, where voters have made history electing a new premier. Wab Kinew, a 41-year-old former rapper, journalist, author, and university administrator, upset the Progressive Conservatives, winning an NDP majority, making him the first provincial First Nations premier in Canada.
This is the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life, and the real work hasn't even begun yet. So I'm going to treat this job with the utmost of reverence and the humility that I believe will be necessary to serve you, the people of Manitoba, and of course I hope to make a positive contribution for all Canadians as well.
Kinew made lots of expensive promises, from fixing healthcare to making life more affordable and searching a landfill for murdered Indigenous women. Our coverage begins with Melissa Ridgen in Winnipeg.
Good morning, Manitoba. Good morning, Canada. Today is a new day.
It was all smiles at the end of a long and sometimes ugly campaign. Tuesday night, Wab Kinew, a former journalist, author, and member of the Enigaming First Nation, became Manitoba's premier-designate, making history as the first First Nations premier of a province.
Manitoba did something more progressive than any of those big cities ever did.
He took the opportunity to address youth and those battling addiction.
I was given a second chance in life. And I would like to think that I've made good on that opportunity. And you can do the same.
Making history wasn't what he campaigned on. The NDP hammered away at improving health care and affordability, while the Conservatives made crime and parental rights their priorities.
We don't have to agree on everything in order to do the big things together.
One of the most divisive issues in this election, a search of the Prairie Green landfill for the remains of at least 2 murdered Indigenous women. Manitobans were split, 47% in favor, 45% against. The NDP said they would search, while the Conservatives said they would not.
I am extraordinarily proud that our province chose to rise above that sort of division.
On this National Day of Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, Ottawa was quick to commit an additional $740,000 to further assess the feasibility of a landfill search.
I think all governments need to be part of this process. From a federal perspective, I've been very clear that we're in it for the long haul, and we will work with the families, the community impacted, as well as the province of Manitoba to get to the right answer on this.
It will take up to 3 years and could cost $200 million. With the wheels now in motion, Manitoba Grand Chief Kathy Merrick says the focus can turn to the other issues that Manitobans care about.
I believe in him as a leader, and I believe in him as to what he can do and what work he can do for all Manitobans.
An uphill battle, Kinew says he's ready for.
What I am proud of is that Manitobans rejected that message of division, and you embraced a message of positivity.
Thank you very much.
Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
David Akin is also in Winnipeg covering the election. He has some insights into why the NDP won. David.
Well, Donna, first thing, I don't think we should really be surprised the NDP won, because they had been leading in the polls for about 2 years. The Progressive Conservatives here deeply unpopular, particularly after the pandemic. That said, the NDP did have to design a campaign and then execute on that game plan. They did just that. Wab Kinew, the NDP leader, leading his party in a second election, so some experience there. But Wab Kinew spent almost every day in the campaign talking about health care. And that really was the sweet spot as far as issues go. On the other side of the ledger, the Progressive Conservatives really didn't find a theme or a message that resonated with voters. They started out talking about tax cuts, but that was nowhere near the top of mind issue for voters. And when the numbers didn't turn, we saw some pretty nasty attack ads attacking the character of Wab Kinew, attacking the character of many other New Democrats who got elected yesterday. And so are there now some lessons for political parties elsewhere? Well, New Democrats here have been using the phrase the last week or so. They say their success was all about meeting voters where they are. It's a way of saying reading the room right or getting the tone right. It might sound simple, but it can be tough to do. And if we look around the country right now, we see leaders like the NDP Premier in BC, David Eby, or in Ottawa, the federal Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre.
Let's bring it home!
They're having strong support in the polls right now, possibly because they are meeting voters where they are when it comes to issues around housing affordability and cost of living. Now, in New Brunswick, Blaine Higgs may be just about to call a snap election over the issue of parents' rights. And if he does that, he's going to have to ask himself, is he meeting voters in that province where they are? Donna.
Okay, David Akin in Winnipeg tonight. Thanks. A final salute for an RCMP officer killed in the line of duty in BC. A regimental funeral service was held for Constable Rick O'Brien today. The 51-year-old was shot and killed while executing a search warrant at a home in Coquitlam last month. O'Brien had recently marked 7 years of service. He'd earned an award for bravery shortly after joining the RCMP. Neetu Garcha is in Langley, BC, where the funeral took place. Neetu.
Donna, at the sombre event in this arena behind me, there was a constant theme in the speeches in tribute to Constable Rick O'Brien. He believed in the positive power of his profession. We heard today that one of the reasons O'Brien wanted to do this job is he wanted to show kids police officers are there for them and can be trusted. On his own time, he would don a uniform and visit with young people with the goal of being a positive influence on their lives. The day of his death, O'Brien was executing a search warrant at a condo building in the Vancouver suburb of Coquitlam. He was responding from a neighboring RCMP detachment along with other officers when he was shot and killed. The next day, a 25-year-old man was charged with first-degree murder in O'Brien's death. O'Brien leaves behind a big family, his wife and 6 children. Here are some more of the sentiments shared in the solemn service.
Rick O'Brien was preparing to graduate depot and start his dream job with the RCMP. One of the reasons Rick wanted to become a police officer was because he wanted to show kids that police officers were there to help and that they could be trusted.
This truly was his dream job, and he loved it. But even greater than the love he had for the RCMP, the love that Rick had for his kids, his family, and of course, his soulmate, and the love of his life, Nicole. It was truly remarkable.
This afternoon, hundreds in uniform marched in the procession as members of the public asked to wear red for Rick today lined the route, a symbol of how his loss is being felt by so many. Donna?
Neetu Garcha in Langley, BC. Thanks. More information is emerging about the Alberta couple killed by a grizzly bear in Banff National Park. Doug Ingalls and Jenny Guzzi, both 62, were from Lethbridge, Alberta. Their nephew says they were experienced in the backcountry. They've been checking in daily during their week-long backpacking trip. He says he realized something was wrong when an SOS message came through from their satellite device saying, "Bear attack bad."
These are people who love this area, who love being out, who saw bears on their walks in this country, but those were normal situations. You see the bear in the distance, you go the opposite way, the bear goes its own way. That's not what happened in this case.
When a Parks Canada team reached the area, they found the bodies of the couple and their dog and an aggressive grizzly bear. It was euthanized. Park officials say it was a 25-year-old underweight female bear. They say the couple's food had been hung appropriately. 2 cans of bear spray were found at the scene, and it's unlikely we'll ever know the reason for the attack. The first of an expected 5 complainants in the sex assault trial of Peter Nygard appeared in front of a Toronto jury today. The former head of a fashion business is charged with 5 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of forcible confinement. He's accused of using his position to lure women and girls during the 1980s and into the mid-2000s. McDonald was in the courtroom today, and a warning: some of the details of the case are disturbing.
The lawyer for Peter Nygard suggested to the first alleged victim that she only spoke to police in late 2020 after learning about a class action lawsuit in the U.S. that she thought she could become part of. This is a photo shown to the jury of a woman who can only be identified by her initials KR, taken in July 1989 when the 28-year-old visited a yoga retreat in the Bahamas. Waiting for her flight back to Toronto, she met Peter Nygard, who told her he was a big-time fashion designer and that he had a property in the Bahamas and other estates elsewhere. That December, after Nygard invited her to a Rolling Stones concert, she testified Nygard locked her into his bedroom suite at his company headquarters, where he forced her to have sex. On the stand Wednesday, KR said she took a taxi home and told her roommate she'd been raped, but decided against going to police because Nygard was wearing a condom, and it would be his word against hers, and she was a simple working actor. KR told the jury in 1998 she saw an article about Nygard in Frank magazine and confided to a friend that Nygard had raped her. On the friend's urging, she went to police headquarters and gave a videotaped statement. She later decided against pursuing charges, saying she was scared and it would cause her stress. In December 2020, she spoke to police again after they came to her. The Crown Attorney asked, "Why now?" KR replied, "Following the Me Too movement, things have changed in society, and I think it's time for that type of behavior to stop. It's something that has tainted my life. I want to get it over with." Defense lawyer Brian Greenspan suggested she read a New York Times article in February 2020 about a civil lawsuit against Nygard in the U.S. and thought she could be well compensated too. Greenspan, "The class will go well if Mr. Nygard is criminally convicted in Toronto. Isn't that fair?" KR agreed, admitting she is part of the suit, but said she only emailed the law firm initially to tell them good luck, saying it happened to her too, and not believing she could be part of the suit because she was Canadian. Peter Nygard has pleaded not guilty. McDonald, Global News.
From crypto king to accused con artist. Coming up, opening arguments in the trial of the man accused of stealing billions from customers. Former U.S. President Donald Trump was in court for the 3rd day of his civil fraud trial in New York. He, his adult sons, and the Trump Organization are charged with inflating property values over a decade. Today, Trump blasted the judge. He called the trial fraudulent and unjust, and then he left, sending out a fundraising email to his supporters claiming he'd been forced to attend. In fact, his appearance is voluntary. New York's Attorney General denounced Trump's rhetoric and said she will not let anyone subvert justice.
I will not be bullied. And so Mr. Trump is no longer here. The Donald Trump show is over. This was nothing more than a political stunt, a fundraising stop. And now we can continue to go forward with our trial, and we are confident that justice will be served.
The judge issued a gag order against defendants discussing members of his staff after Trump attacked one of the law clerks on social media. The trial of a 31-year-old accused of stealing billions from customers got underway in Manhattan today. Sam Bankman-Fried is the founder of FTX, once one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world. The prosecution says it was all built on lies, while the defense claims Bankman-Fried acted in good faith. Joel Senek takes us through the opening arguments and the implications of this case for the crypto industry.
Sam Bankman-Fried in court, accused of stealing billions from customers of his now bankrupt company, FTX.
Sam Bankman-Fried is a huge case. FTX went to become from nothing to a giant company. It was running TV ads with celebrities. This is a massive case.
FTX was a marketplace where you could buy and sell cryptocurrency. Prosecutors allege Bankman-Fried used customer money to prop up his own hedge fund, buy luxury real estate, and donate to U.S. political campaigns. The 31-year-old pleaded not guilty to the charges against him, but admitted publicly in the past to making mistakes in the FTX collapse.
He's violated the conventional wisdom of all criminal defense lawyers. Don't talk to anyone, keep quiet, keep low, keep a very quiet profile.
Lawyers for Bankman-Fried describe him as a math nerd who didn't pay attention to risk management. Prosecutors argue the former billionaire orchestrated a scheme to build an empire. One Canadian crypto researcher says the case will provide lessons for the entire industry.
The SBF case will be looked upon as the sort of key milestone narrative that told the world and investors that you need adults in the room.
FTX was operating out of the Bahamas, where Bankman-Fried was arrested last December. The company was previously based in Hong Kong. Tightening government regulation there made the more friendly regulatory environment in the Bahamas particularly appealing.
The net is only as secure as the weakest jurisdiction that's allowed to enter and do business in your country.
Which is why consumers are urged to do their homework before putting money into a crypto exchange.
I would recommend that Canadians use ones that have decided to make the investment in operating here in Canada under the regulatory regime.
Bankman-Fried's trial could last weeks. Prosecutors say they will call former members of his inner circle to testify against him. And if he's convicted, he could face more than 100 years in prison. Joel Senek, Global News, Washington.
The suspect in the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur made his first court appearance today in Las Vegas. Dwayne Davis was arrested on Friday after a grand jury indicted him for murder to promote a criminal gang. Tupac Shakur was shot and killed in 1996. Davis's arraignment was postponed for 2 weeks. He is expected to plead not guilty. Still ahead, why the British Prime Minister is putting the brakes on a high-speed rail project. In Croatia, crews are trying to contain a huge fire at a recycling plant. It started early this morning and spread rapidly, sending plumes of thick black smoke into the air. Plastic waste and harmful chemicals are burning, and people have been told to stay indoors and keep their windows closed. It's expected to take several days to put out the fire. And this was a close call. Security camera video from Australia shows the moment two backpackers narrowly escaped an explosion inside a hostel in Sydney. Fire and rescue crews say the blast was likely caused by a faulty electric bike battery that was charging. The building was evacuated, and one of the men seen in the video was treated for burns on his leg. The UK was once a pioneer in rail transportation. It's now fallen behind some of its European neighbours. And today, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak scrapped a section of a planned high-speed rail line in England. Redmond Shannon explains how the pricey saga could have some valuable lessons for similar projects here in Canada, the only G7 country without high-speed rail.
HS2's new British-built bullet-style trains will
HS2 is the UK's largest infrastructure project. 500 new bridges are being built across the route and 100 kilometres of tunnels.
But as construction costs have ballooned up to an estimated $170 billion, the ambitions of HS2 have been cut back or delayed to save money.
It was originally planned to connect London with England's less prosperous north. 2 years ago, most of the eastern branch was cancelled. Now Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has axed the Manchester section, leaving just the southern leg to Birmingham.
The right thing to do when the facts change is to have the courage to change direction.
As the UK economy struggles, Sunak faced pressure from within his own party to make the call at the Tory National Convention in Manchester. Sunak's critics say the billions already invested will now provide little benefit.
The only way to make sure you don't overspend on a project is to finish it. The sooner you get it done and dusted and all the money spent, then that's when the risk of overspend disappears.
The expensive dilemma could be an important lesson should Canada ever build high-speed rail, something that has been proposed along the Windsor-Quebec corridor and in Alberta.
It's not just other developed countries now that have high-speed rail. It's countries like Indonesia, Uzbekistan, Turkey, Morocco.
Transit analyst Rhys Martin says one lesson from HS2 is that going underground usually means going over budget.
In any long-distance project that we talk about in Canada, there's definitely opportunities to build a lot of fast line that's away from where people are living for the most part, and that you can do that effectively.
Indonesia opened its first high-speed rail line on Monday. That project backed by money and experience from China. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Believe it or not, next, how AI is making it harder to tell what's real. Artificial intelligence feels like one of those great unknowns, something that has the potential to both help us and hurt us and pretend to be us. This week, the world's biggest YouTube star, Mr. Beast, had to clarify to his 180 million followers that he was not offering $2 iPhones, but his likeness in a deepfake video was. It's all a scam, and as Mike Drolet reports, it's getting easier to pull off.
I'm not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real.
The likeness is uncanny, and that's becoming a growing issue. If you haven't heard of deepfakes, it's video or audio created by artificial intelligence with the end goal of creating something that didn't actually occur.
What's up, Internet? I'm north of the border, eh?
Tom Cruise, for example, doesn't create videos for TikTok. And while a clip exists of Tom Hanks selling dental plans, the actor himself warned his fans it's not actually him.
Well, unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world where everybody's going to use the technology for good. I think that I hope that there will be more thought put into how we can actually create like a good legislative framework around how these technologies can be used.
With deepfakes, you can conceivably assume anyone's identity, like, say, John Malkovich. Or what about John Travolta? No, wait, here's a good one. Prince William. The possibilities are as endless as they are terrifying. But yeah, some of those, like my English accent, are better than others. But the technology, which is for the most part free online, is improving all the time. And here's the rub. There are no requirements that it be used in any moral or ethical way.
You want to keep your money and your freedom.
As with most things AI, the laws are still catching up to the technology. In California, deepfakes are banned in politics and pornography, but a gray area still exists with satire and parody. And Canadian copyright laws protect deepfakes in certain circumstances as having a social purpose.
So obviously there's negatives in the sort of misinformation category, but there's also the opportunity to do some pretty good political satire.
A satire like Justin Trudeau reading a very anti-Trudeau book.
Every person in Canada liked freedom a lot, but the Prime Minister who ran the country did not.
The video is obviously fake and arguably hilarious, but when the coding makes it too lifelike, will it still be funny? Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. There is nothing fake about tonight's Your Canada. It was grown in Richmond, British Columbia. It is this enormous pumpkin. 78-year-old David Chan grew it in his backyard. He calls it Mama, and he drove down to California with it to enter it in one of the world's biggest pumpkin contests. Turns out Mama was the heaviest pumpkin in the patch, 2,212 pounds, or more than 1,000 kilograms. And Chan took home more than $27,000. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.